Ruth Clifford was a major star in the 19-teens and 1920s, but after starring in just a few talkies, she transitioned to being a character actress before beginning a whole new career as a voiceover actress. Why? Join me as I investigate. Ruth Clifford was born in Pawtucket, Rhode Island in 1900 to English immigrant parents. Growing up, Ruth loved going to the movies with her brother and told an interviewer years later that she loved making up names for the stars on the screen in the years before Florence Lawrence became the first named American movie star in 1910. Her mother sadly passed away in 1911, and Ruth and her sister were first sent to a boarding school in Rhode Island before moving to Los Angeles to live with their actress aunt around 1915. Never losing her love for motion pictures, Ruth found work as an extra at the Edison Company upon arriving in Hollywood. By September of 1916, she was supporting Harry Carey and Edith Johnson in Behind the Lines, her first credited film debut, made at Bluebird Photoplays, a subsidiary of Universal. The film's director, Henry McCrae, was impressed with Ruth's talent and got her a Universal contract. Behind the Lines got good reviews in both variety and moving picture world, and Ruth was off to an impressive start. Ruth starred in several shorts before starring as the title role in Polly Put the Kettle On in 1917. In June of that same year, she starred in A Kentucky Cinderella, which got her a rave review in Photoplay, which stated that she had more than beauty and brought a talent to the screen that was often lacking in many of her contemporaries. Ruth starred in several films at Universal over the next few years, including several successful westerns like The Desire of the Moth and The Red, Red Heart, which got her raves in variety. She also starred in the controversial yet hugely successful The Kaiser, a propaganda film that was released in 1918 during World War I. In late 1919, Ruth left Universal and moved east to make movies with Louis Selznick at Republic Pictures, where she starred in The Amazing Woman. Like many silent film stars, the majority of Ruth's films are sadly lost. However, The Amazing Woman survives at the Library of Congress. I had actually thought that almost all of her silent movies were lost, but thankfully, David Sten amazingly found a dozen or so that survive in various film archives, so thank you again, David Sten, for your very helpful and amazing research. While I don't know for sure, it looks like Ruth freelanced for the remainder of the silent film era and starred in many notable films. In 1921, she starred with Reginald Denny in Tropical Love, which was produced at the independent Playgoers Pictures, and which Denny also wrote. In 1923, she starred opposite John Gilbert in Truxton King, an adaptation of Graustark at Fox. Years later, Ruth told an interviewer that Jack Gilbert was her favorite leading man. In 1924, back at Universal, she starred with Laura LaPlante in Butterfly, which many film historians consider to be her finest work, and which is thankfully preserved at the UCLA Film Archive. That same year, she also starred as Anne Rutledge, the first love of Abraham Lincoln, in The Dramatic Life of Abraham Lincoln at First National. Ruth later called this performance her favorite, and Variety said that she was sweet, charming, and delightful in the movie. A few reels of Abraham Lincoln survive in various archives. In 1927, Ruth starred in The Thrill Seekers, which also survives and is on DVD, thankfully, from Grapevine Video. In 1929, Ruth's final silent film was The Eternal Woman, which was made at Columbia and also starred Olive Borden. Later that year, Ruth made her Talkie debut in the Warner Brothers Talkie musical extravaganza Show of Shows, in which she appeared with Carmel Myers, Mary Astor, Sally Eilers, Viola Dana, Shirley Mason, Frances Lee, and Julianne Johnston in the pirate segment, singing a fun song about leading ladies having to be constantly rescued by swashbucklers. While not as big a hit as MGM's similar Hollywood Review, Show of Shows was still successful, and Ruth had made a successful transition to the talkies. But then, she took almost a 3-year break from making movies. In 1924, she had married real estate agent James Cornelius, and the couple had a son, James Clifford Cornelius, in 1930. By the time Ruth returned to work, she wasn't at the same level of stardom as she had been in her silent days, or even in 1929, but that didn't stop her from throwing herself 100% back into her acting. After a few uncredited appearances, Ruth co-starred with Harry Langdon and Vernon Dent in the 1933 comedy short The Hitchhiker. She then made a memorable brief appearance in The Constant Woman at Fox that same year, which starred Conrad Nagel and Leela Hyams. In 1934, she starred with Lona Andre, Lucille Gleason, and Skeets Gallagher in Woman Unafraid. While Woman Unafraid proved to be her largest role on the screen for a long time, She continued to work as a popular character actress in the movies for the next 30-plus years. Her appearances moved between being credited and uncredited, but she was always memorable, continuing to demonstrate the talent that had made her a star way back in 1916. Some of her significant roles included a kindly woman that helps young Jane Withers and Patty O'Day in 1935, another kindly woman that wants to help young Buzzy Henry in 1941's Mr. Celebrity, playing the angry Mrs. Gillespie in the 1945 noir The Spider, playing a nurse in the brilliant Olivia de Havilland classic The Snake Pit in 1948, and playing a mayor's wife that meets Clark Gable and Loretta Young at a mayoral convention in 1950's Key to the City. But Ruth didn't just stop at being a character actress in the movies. She also created an entire new second career for herself as an in-demand voice actress at Walt Disney Studios, starting in 1942 when she voiced Pluto's girlfriend Dinah the Dachshund in The Sleepwalker. She then voiced Minnie Mouse and Daisy Duck, among other characters, in several shorts over the next decade. She also began working on the stage and toured with the Irish theater company, the Abbey Theater Company, in the 1940s. In the 1950s, Ruth also found success as an in-demand character actress on several television series, making several appearances over the next 2 decades, including such shows as Racket Squad, Highway Patrol, Hazel, Dr. Kildare, and even as late as 1977 when she played Mrs. Stewart, a tragic target of a murderer on a powerful episode of Police Story. Following this appearance, Ruth retired at the age of 77. Ruth seems to have lived the rest of her life in quiet retirement. She began to speak to various film historians about her work on the silent screen in the 1970s and 1980s, although according to her obituary, she preferred casual conversations over official interviews. In the late 1980s, Ruth moved into the motion picture home where she lived for the rest of her life. Remarkably, Ruth lived to be 98 years old and passed away from natural causes in 1998. So we are left with the question, why did Ruth Clifford's career stardom falter in the talkies? Well, I think the logical explanation was that she took some time off to give birth to her son, and by the time she returned to work, she took what she could get and began several new careers for herself as a popular character actress, voice actress, and later stage actress. While she wasn't the star name that she'd been in the silent era, I think that Ruth's talkie career is actually more fascinating and proves the range of talent that she had. She truly could do anything and play any role. A true chameleon, Ruth lost herself completely in every part that she played, whether that be a snooty society lady, a kindly older woman, or even the voice of 2 of the most famous cartoon characters of all time. Her remarkable vocal range must also be mentioned here. It is truly incredible to listen to her natural lower voice in her usual screen appearances and then compare that with the significantly higher pitch she used to voice Daisy and Minnie. Furthermore, she amazingly was adept at voicing animals that didn't speak like humans, such as Dinah the Dachshund, sounding like an actual dachshund. The sheer range of Ruth's incredible abilities truly makes her a legend and one of the most talented actors in the history of cinema that more people should know about. I hope that this video helps in a way to bring her name back into the spotlight that it had been back in the 1920s, but has always deserved to have been ever since then. Here's to you, Ruth Clifford. Such a talent, such a legend. Please like and subscribe or follow this account if you want to learn more about the history of silent film stars whose stardom lasted only briefly in the talkies. Up next, join me as I cover the silent to talkie career of June Collier. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend.